welcome to this week's episode of Ambassador Talk. My name is Jason David. This week we have the absolute pleasure of talking to our good friend Lance Gillenwater, pronounced with a hard G, not like Gillenwater. And the reason I bring this to your attention is I have a very hard time differentiating between the camp that likes GIF and the camp that likes GIF. Lance, what do you think?
GIF all the way,
Okay.
100%.
Yeah, so you are not a fan of the silent G, where people say Jiffy.
Right. It just doesn't flow for me.
Doesn't make any sense. There's actually a bunch of memes out there of all the hard G and the soft G sounds of how it doesn't make sense why it would be pronounced GIF.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So things that do make sense, how about introducing you? So do us a favor, and for the folks that are tuning in and humoring this conversation up until this point, who are you? And could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely, Chief. My name is Lance Gillenwater, Staff Sergeant retired. I was a medical lab tech out of Ellsworth, South Dakota, originally from Fairbanks, Alaska. 36, have one daughter, now residing in Norfolk, Virginia.
No, that's good. And in these conversations, as we go from week to week, it's ambassadors interviewing ambassadors, which is kind of cool because I think we have a slightly more interpersonal connection than just random strangers that are meeting each other for the first time. So, understanding you, knowing your story a bit, I think it's incredible the things that you have kind of gotten past. With the help of folks that are, right next to you, your family, and then of course you reaching out to the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program. So, if you could, let us know what was the deciding point to join the ranks of the AFW2 alumni.
Absolutely. Well, after I got out in 2016, I had quite a dark period of 3 years. Was out with 100% PTSD, so it was a little bit hard to integrate back into society. But then I had moved to Florida and got some therapy that really helped. And after I cleaned up my act a little bit, got a dog. Always helps. I reached out to AFW2 because they had been getting in touch with me for 3 years, but I really didn't want anything to do with the color blue. I was kind of just done. I didn't really get the best outro to the military. But then once I had the opportunity to get back on my feet, I was a medic before. I just wanted to help people. And so I always looked forward to getting back to that position where I could help. And once I could, then I got in touch with AFW2 and said, thanks for reaching out. I'm ready.
So I love that you and I can share the same story in that I didn't ignore AFW2. I just wasn't really paying attention to when folks like Sean Sprayberry, John Fernandez, Dave Wooten would just send me little feelers. Hey, are you interested in this? Would you like to attend the Warrior Games? And or are you interested in enrolling in our program? I did the same, and I professionally looked to the side as those emails and those messages were coming to me as tactfully as I could, because I just wasn't really comfortable acknowledging the fact that I too had issues. For you, after coming to the realization that you needed help, how did you feel once you made first contact?
It was very overwhelming, to be honest. I wasn't used to having so many folks engage me on a friendly, compassionate level. As soon as I got all my orders ready, it was kind of last minute. I went to the JBLE event in 2019, the last one we had right before COVID, and it was amazing. I got in touch with the ramp team right away, so I was there a little bit earlier, and I went through all the programs. And in the first 2 hours, I was not sure how to handle it or how to take it, but in the first 2 hours, I cracked. It was literally what I was praying for. It was everything that I was looking for. And I wish I would have, reached out a little bit sooner. I just wasn't in that spot, but I was glad I was when I got in touch.
So there's plenty of folks that are kind of on the fence. They don't actually know who qualifies for the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program. So it's not just combat veterans. There's some of us that fall into that category, and others who suffer from major mental illness or a medical condition, or even something that they were born with that is just out of their control. And it's the Air Force medical system trying to do their best to either keep them in or find work outside on the civilian side. But it's that weird gray area in the middle where you don't know if you qualify. And a lot of folks feel weird, like my problem isn't big enough to be defined by the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program. And we're here to explain to folks that that's just not the case. So in your personal opinion, what do you feel about it?
I think you're absolutely correct. I didn't really even feel that kind of validation for my wounds from my deployment until I went there, and they're like, "No, that's valid." I was like, I didn't even think about that. I just knew that something wasn't really right. And as much therapy as you go through, you dig into these issues, but you really don't have that kind of support coming at you from folks that don't have those issues or aren't trained in the field to get you the care that you need. You're just not used to it. So that's absolutely correct. You know, I couldn't have I couldn't have felt so whole anywhere else in that time.
No, I appreciate your perspective on that. And what I would also like to let folks know is if you too are interested in joining into the ranks of the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program, whether you're active duty, Guard Reserve, or recently separated, all you have to do is go to woundedwarrior.af.mil. There's a button to see a do you qualify, right? And it's as easy as that. So for folks that are interested in becoming a member, what would you say to them to encourage participation and or maybe a little research to see if they do in fact qualify?
Well, if they know about the program, they can reach out to anybody involved in the program. Everybody is extremely willing. They could even get in touch with me if they want. I'm in the RAMP program. I have 3 mentorees underneath me with PTSD, and if you don't have the same similar injuries, we can find a mentor that has something like that if that's your thing. Or if you just want to see what other programs there are, you got the website, you got Facebook, and you got the shirts. If someone's contacting you, I would say just don't put it away too far off on the side of the emails. Keep them in your limelight and um, use them sooner than you think you do. Because if you get your foot in that door and you start going, the machine takes off very fast. And I think you'll find that you do belong in a place like this with others that can relate to that. And I don't think you could go too early. If I had gone early enough, if I had um, been a little bit more involved or not so reclusive, I think it would have taken off much faster than the 3 years.
Thank you. And Lance, to do a deeper dive into your personal story, what are the things that you would like to share? Obviously, you went through the ambassador training as well, but what are the things that you would like to share with the folks that are tuning in today? And do you have a message for them?
Yeah. Every avenue of this program, AFW2, has something to offer. If it's not just that business feeling connection. It's a real connection. It, people want to help. There's real genuine kindness and compassion here and understanding for issues that are just so intense sometimes that there's no words for this. And you find that they don't have words either, but that you connect on that level. And know that that's there. That's really a good takeaway. Just know that that exists, and I found that here, and if that's something that you're looking for, dive in a little bit. Even if you want to just get your toes wet, I think you will find that same feeling.
One of my favorite things about going through the ambassador program myself, not just that program, but others, especially events that were in person prior to COVID, right?
Mhm.
Like different Warrior Games events and things of that nature. There was a weird sense of like shared camaraderie, but no one had the same issues, right?
Yeah.
So myself, I'm a combat wounded veteran. There are folks that have just like one person that I was in the class with has had a brain injury that had just spiraled out of control as if they were going to the Air Force. Another ambassador that I know can't feel any part of her body. I mean, it is absolutely drastic as far as the extremes of people and their issues, but no one's judging each other. Everyone is here in a support and inclusivity model, and I think it's a really good feeling for folks who feel alone to finally feel a part of something again. I mean, what do you think?
Yes, 100%. I went from a state of total seclusion, and then as soon as I could into almost total immersion. And it felt like that. It was everyone comes from a certain place, but suffering is relative, but that feeling that you have, everyone can relate to that. And you all connect on that page. And I said this earlier, but the wounds that we have in the military seem to be so much greater in some respects, or in abundance of where you would see them in the civilian sector. And that intensity and trying to figure out what's going on and who you are again and trying to reintegrate, and it's a little bit different than average life and in society. And I never thought that I would be back in society and normal everyday living my life. But having a place to go that has everyone there with all these different resources, really, all these different stories, it feels very much like a home and a community.
Well, I can definitely tell you personally, and for the rest of the team, I am happy that you found your path and your road to recovery. Some things that I'd like to touch on, and they're more technical than emotional. When you went through your training through AFW2 for this ambassador program, it was all virtual. I mean, even the interview that we're doing now is over a virtual platform. Did that change anything for you versus seeing people in person?
I wouldn't say that it changed it exactly, but it expanded on what I think we can do. I didn't know what to expect. COVID changed everything, that's for sure. And technology has been expanded in the last year and a half on a huge magnitude. Um, but I noticed something for me, suffering with PTSD is being in these virtuals, I don't have to look behind my back all the time. And that's really nice. That is great. And I would recommend that anyone that has any kind of feelings like that and uneasiness, and if they're not ready once we open back up for these live events, to try one of the live or the online events. Um, that feeling, it felt really nice. Even though I had been to the JBL and I had been to the live event, it was just it's a different feeling, and I was a little bit more comfortable being online than I was in person. But then again, they both have their pros and cons. You can't hug someone online, but you can send a virtual heart.
That's true. That's true. I have a couple of things that have been on my mind during this interview, and I'd like for folks to understand just how deep your situation got. Right. So we talked about the recovery. We talked about reaching out for assistance. But at your lowest point, there had to have been something in your head that said, I don't want to be alone anymore, right? I don't want to be without my friends and family, or even the friends and family I don't know that I have, right? So in your particular situation, where were you mentally, and I'm assuming it wasn't the best of places, but where were you when you decided, like you made that decision point that said, I want to reach out to AFW2. And I know I asked this a little bit before, but we're trying to encourage folks that are on the fence, that don't really feel the same way we do today. They probably feel the same way we did 3, 4 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. After I got out, and even right before, after I got home from my deployment, honestly, I started drinking real heavy. And so for about 4 or 5 years, 3 years after I got out, that's really where I was at, and I was really pushing that deep down, deep down. And once I had gone to the therapy, and I was like, I just need to change things, and I just decided to change my life. And then even though I was working out a lot, I thought I had it in balance. Thought I had it in check, and I really did not, because my mental clarity was not there still. I just my ego made me feel like I was doing it all by myself, but I wasn't growing. So when I cleaned up, and just, yeah, got my dog. Can't leave him out of the story. He's great. That's really, I felt all those feelings again. All those feelings that I was suppressing came back up. And that's when I was like, I don't want to not be connected anymore. It wasn't so much a feeling of I don't want to be lonely, but I was tired of not being connected. I'd been disconnected for 5 years, and I got a little taste of life again. And I was like, I remember this. I remember what it's like. And there's these people that want to talk to me and want to take me to these things. And I was like, you know what? I'm going. I'm going to go. I'm going to dive in, and I'm going to reconnect.
No, I like that, and I love that at the end of your testimony that you also referenced the fact that they hadn't given up on you, that they keep bugging you, and that they kept reaching out. I've never met an organization in my entire life, and I don't think you have either, who is as persistent as the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program staff and caregivers. And I'd like to throw some kudos out to them, not because it's their job to do that. Like, yes, they have an outreach program, but they don't get paid anything extra to continuously ping folks to come in and get this service. This is not a money making organization. This
Right.
is literally life support. It's social support. It is family and friend support. And you know, I might be a little biased. I think you too, but it's a wonderful program. And if you haven't had the chance to even see one of these events happen in person, definitely encourage the folks that are tuning in today to go through the feed on the Facebook and check out the different videos, different interactions, and different virtual care events, just to kind of get some insight on what it is that AFW2 can do for you.
Yeah, absolutely, Chief. And even when you're in, they still don't give up. They're still pinging you on stuff. They're hitting you up on Facebook and hey, like, hey, we have a meeting, and I'm PDRL now, so they don't have to let me know what's going on and all this stuff, but they want to, and it shows all the way through the program. And you're right, I haven't experienced anything like this.
No, that's fantastic. And so, what I would do as we kind of round off this interview, is there anything you'd like to add that I did not ask? Something near and dear to your heart that you'd like to share with the folks that are tuning in, and/or any more additional messaging that you'd like to get out?
Yeah, actually, I think there is. When I was in, I had a really rough time. I pretty much got pushed to the side for the most part and just kind of slid my way out of the door. And I thought that was the end of it for me. I thought I was going to just push it all behind me and everything. But I'm glad that AFW2 didn't stop. We talked about it a couple times, but it's not the same feeling as it was when you were active duty, depending on your situation in some pieces. Um, I didn't exactly have the greatest support on my way out, but after I was out, I never expected to have support ever again. And I definitely do now. And the programs that they have going on led me to the validation of feeling like a deserving human again. Led me to my arts, as self-expression, and just feeling like I connected. And that feeling of being connected with your life and other people is amazing. It's you can't put a price on it.
No, I appreciate that. And Lance, thanks again for joining me today. Just a little to learn a little bit about you, your story, and then again, of course, your messaging. Those are all things that I am very thankful for. I'd like to ask the folks that are watching this feed right now, please tune in next week as we bring another ambassador
Yeah.
on for our next edition of Ambassador Talk to let you know what AFW2 can do for you too.